Dear Mr. Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, tech community. My name is Ben Brake, and I was just asked to introduce myself. So I'm the Director General for Digital and Data Policy in the Ministry for Digital and Transport. And I always say, kind of a disclaimer, that I'm not entirely responsible for the digitization of mobility, but we are rather looking into digital pure and digital only. So we are responsible within the ministry to actually give you the right framework in which you can operate. I really like the headline of the event today, A New Deal for Sovereignty, because I think it is really time that we speak about sovereignty and about a new framing of sovereignty. I would like to highlight two aspects I think we should bear in mind when we talk about sovereignty. First of all, we all need to do our homework, especially political decision makers and those responsible in the different ministries. Mr. Ambassador, you already mentioned that we need to put into action a right framework for venture capital. I think when we look at other parts of the world, the conditions are a bit more, how to say, stimulating over there than they are in Europe. So we have a lot to do. Also, in terms of the digital single market, we should actually come to a conclusion, or how to say, to a finalization of the digital single market. Because what we utterly need is a huge market actually to scale. And this is also about scaling up, to scale business models and new innovative ideas also within the European market. When you look east and when you look west, the markets are bigger. They have also other advantages, and we need to catch up. But what we also need to do is kind of a nitty-gritty work when it comes to our homework. For example, we also should have a deep look into our procurement rules. Very often, innovative startups, also the IT companies, cannot participate in public tenders due to some formal requirements they simply do not fulfill. This is also a measure, or this could also be a good tool or a good mean actually to help innovative companies to actually scale with their business here in Europe. I would call this, by the way, offensive mechanisms. So we shall do everything to actually empower our economy to actually catch up to the West and also perhaps to the East in order actually to get our values onto track. This is one aspect. So we need to do our homework with offensive mechanisms. Another one is that against the gloomy background of international relations at the current state, we also need to think about sovereignty within strong partnerships. And these partnerships can only lie in the West, both like-minded, but also geographically. First of all, I think when you look in the transatlantic region, we are making very good progress when it comes to questions of trade, when it comes to questions of data privacy. You all have noticed that there is a new privacy framework agreement in place. We all hope and look forward to get an adequacy decision by the European Commission in March or in April. That is a cornerstone or a markstone in transatlantic relations. Also, when you have looked into the results coming out of the Trade and Tech Council, when you look at the agreements, especially on standards, when you look at those common efforts or common approaches perhaps to AI, I think this is a good work actually also to counter a bit the narrative that on the other side of the Atlantic there's something like data capitalism without any regulation. The United States have some kind of same discussions around content moderation when it comes to huge platforms or when it comes to ensuring actually competitiveness in the digital age. Some states have even introduced data protection rules that are stronger than the debate actually currently going on the federal level, because the United States are also thinking or discussing introducing data privacy laws on the federal level. So the transatlantic region is geographically one where we also should think about partnerships when it comes to sovereignty. We should not underestimate the G7 as a place actually where we could also come forward when it comes to data-driven business. When you look, for example, into the plans of the G7 presidency of Japan, the upcoming one next year, they will put a very, very strong emphasis on the data free flow with trust issue. I know that many people say these are only warm words. The Japanese are very well aware of that at the moment there is the debate that these are only warm words. So they would really like to, how to say, as we say in German, put a bit more flesh to the bone in order to come to tangible results. And for example, data spaces could be these kind of tangible results. We also should bear in mind that in the OECD there are discussions going on digital and data sovereignty, and I say this also against the background of the visit our current Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock is paying to India at the moment. We shall not forget the Global South. We need to look at the dedicated countries of the Global South in order also to form some kind of coalition when it comes to the question of how we deal with data in the international sphere. So we have two pillars, I think, when we talk about New Deal of sovereignty. We need to do our own homework. We need to actually focus on offensive mechanisms, on offensive measures, actually to scale up our economy here in Europe. But we also need to actually join forces with like-minded countries, especially against the very, very difficult international background we are currently faced with. Let me also say a few words with regard to the Inflation Reduction Act in the US. This is actually, of course, not helping. We are doing two steps in the front, one to the back with this. So I very much support what the President of the European Commission just said, that we shall not with a hot heart actually react to this, but we should, because Europe is also the place where we are looking, where we focus on rights and on mechanisms. So what we should do is, if there is no, if we don't see a perspective within the negotiations with the US, we shall of course ask the WTO to look into this. What we also should do is we should perhaps look into our competition law, for example. I know that we have currently a lot of IPCIs ongoing, especially those in the cloud aspect, but also others. But we should perhaps look very generally if our competition law does not only, and this is unfortunately how we look into it, we look into competition law on the EU level if there are no, we don't want to have huge companies in Europe that might dominate the European competition. But is this the right perspective? It's just a question. Shouldn't we have a global perspective on this one? Shouldn't we allow European champions to grow in order to compete globally? That could also be a measure, by the way. So to just conclude, when we talk about a new deal of sovereignty, we need to do our own homework. We need to look into everything we could do actually to give the entrepreneurs the right way and the right means in a right framework to actually grow and scale. And we have to look into and we have to focus on international cooperation. Because, by the way, I assume that most of the entrepreneurs present here, your supply chains are not only in Europe and your markets are probably worldwide. So we need to find some common ground with like-minded countries actually of how we actually could deal with data-driven business. And as I said, the ongoing negotiations, or negotiations probably is not the right word, but the exchange on the Inflation Reduction Act should also remind us that actually we should become more competitiveness, but we should actually focus on the right ways to do this. I think the thoughts about actually going into letting the WTO have a look on this might be the right way forward. I wish you all a very pleasant evening here. I should say hi from the minister who should actually take over. Unfortunately, he's not available today, so you need to actually live with me. So thank you. And I put a disclaimer on everything I said because I'm under heavy painkillers. I just had a surgery with my tooth. So no, but joke aside, thank you very much for having me here. I wish you all a pleasant evening, great discussions, and please give us homework to do as political decision makers. Thank you very much.